Welcome to the official podcast of Comics Beer and Sci-Fi. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow Comics Beer and Sci-Fi on all your favorite social media apps. Now, on with the show!
Hey, this is Mark. We're at the Living Dead weekend at the Monroeville Mall in Pennsylvania, where they shot the classic zombie film Dawn of the Dead. I have a treat for you. I'm here with Judith Ridley. You know her. She played the beautiful Judy in Night of the Living Dead. Tell us, how did you get involved in the movie?
I worked for Russ and George at Latent Image, and I read for the part of Barbara, but thankfully I didn't get it. I was really not very good. I had never done any acting before. And so they wrote the part of Judy, for me. And that's how it started. I was a secretary there. That's what they called them back then. And they were great guys. And the shooting went on for, I think, about 7 months or so, thereabouts. And when I wasn't shooting, I was working at the business, answering the phone, typing letters, that sort of thing. And, business as usual.
So what were some of your fondest memories while shooting the movie?
Well, I recall George, this is how he dealt with me, because he knew me. I was the young girl in the office. He sat on the floor with me in the living room. I remember we were dodging lighting stands and cords and things, and he just explained to me what the scene would require and what I might be thinking. He put it on a level that I would understand. I was really 19, 20 years old, and so I'd never acted. I had never done anything else.
So, was it challenging doing that monologue scene when you were talking to Tom, talking about trying to get away and everything like that?
No, I don't recall. I don't recall that it was challenging. It was just I wanted to get it right. I wanted it to be natural. I didn't want it to be fussy or overdone in any way. That was the look that we were going for.
Now, does people ever give you grief about why you got into the truck?
Well, I've only seen the film 1.5 times with an audience. The first time was with the premiere. And last night I watched, but I didn't watch the death scene. I didn't stay that long. So I understand that they do shout out, no. So, that was not a good decision on my part.
I guess you're a victim of the restrictions of your character.
And my jacket. Yes.
Your jacket's caught.
Yes.
Anyways, Judith, it was a pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully everything works out good with you. Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks. And this is Mark in Monroeville Mall. Hey, this is Mark. I'm here with Gary Streiner. He worked on Night of the Living Dead with his brother and amongst other great artists. Tell us, how did you get involved with Night of the Living Dead?
My brother was Russ Streiner, one of the producers. So nepotism.
You gotta love it.
Square away, But I was kind of part of a group that put together the Latent Image, which the Latent Image was the company that made the film. We obviously formed a corporation, Image 10, just to handle the business affairs of that one movie. But yeah, that was it. I was part of the pack, before the movie happened. I worked there for probably a year and a half.
Did you run a lot of the audio on the movie?
Yes, I was the sound engineer.
I've seen some of the photos.
Yeah. There are a few out there, but it was and somebody said today, so you recorded it, but you weren't the boom man. And I said, no, we didn't have a boom man. Which obviously having a boom man is very convenient when you have actors walking around the room, but we didn't have a boom man, so it was on a fixed pole, and we kind of trained the actors to say their important lines if they're walking around the room. Okay, make sure say your line right here because that's where the mic is, and literally that's how the.
Was that one of the greatest challenges you had working on that film?
No, probably crickets were my. Because we shot a lot of stuff at night, and it was in the summer, so there were crickets outside, and you couldn't possibly get away from them, and we would have had to have, put a bubble over the house in order to, kick it out. So then there were also stuff that we shot during the day. And so we had to add crickets to those, in order to balance it out with the scene it was matching to. So that was an interesting effort.
So what are some of your fondest memories working on the film?
The camaraderie, just the can-do attitude. There wasn't ever any question of whether or not we would finish this film or. No, that was our mission. We started out to do it, and under extreme financial conditions, meaning low, not high, we had to make a lot of compromises and had to be very innovative in a lot of things. And I guess this is the proof of whether or not it worked.
Did you ever think while you were making that movie that this was become to this?
No. I didn't even, first of all, I didn't even have a concept of this. I had never been to a convention, You really didn't have conventions back then. In 1967, 68, there. I don't even know who it might have been, some of the big ones, there might have been. But, no, that all came with the package.
There's a funny anecdote. Did you get people ever asking you to say they're coming to get you, Barbara, confusing you with your brother?
No, but I have been confused about my brother. I mean, one of the first conventions that I ever went to, there was I think it was an uncle and a nephew. Young man came to the table and wanted my autograph, and I signed the autograph. And only after I signed Gary Streiner did they realize that I wasn't the guy that said they're coming to get you, Barbara. I can do it in the accent. I'd probably do it better than Russ, but I'm not going to get into that territory.
But don't sell yourself short. You worked on an incredible movie, and that's what you have to live with.
Yeah, well, that's the legacy, It's no, it's not only an honor, but I don't know. It's just good for the soul, It's just like I was 20 years old when we shot Night of the Living Dead. What did I know about life or anything else? It was just like show up on time and you'll be fine. That's kind of the only rules that were in the book at that time. So, no, I feel I'm very privileged. I say it 50 times over the weekend. I lived the American dream. I grew up a middle-class kid in rural Pennsylvania. Well, it wasn't actually real rural, but and all of a sudden, because of circumstance, I happened to be that person in that position. That's the American dream, right?
Well, thanks a lot for talking to us, Gary. It was a pleasure. And this is Mark at the Living Dead Weekend. Hey, this is Mark. I'm here with Kyra Schon. You remember her with that little trough thing in Night of the Living Dead, hacking up her mother. Tell us, how did you get involved with Night of the Living Dead?
Well, I got involved because my dad was one of the producers, and they needed a kid my age, and so they drafted me.
The rest was history.
The rest was history, exactly.
Tell us about some of your most pleasant experience working on the film.
Well, the blood was chocolate. So that was fun, having that smeared all over my face. That was good. Working with my dad was fun. Working with Dwayne Jones was amazing. He was the other lead. in the African American man in the movie, and he was a wonderful man, and I loved him. But yeah, it was funny because I would see people like dressed up as zombies in the gooey makeup, standing around the grill outside, eating hot dogs, smoking cigarettes, and so it was kind of a surreal experience, but it was fun. It was never scary, and I feel like the luckiest person in the world, really.
And you got to spend most of your screen time laying on a door.
Yeah, that was not as much fun. That was kind of, can we end this scene, please? But yeah, the stabbing was fun. The tussling with Dwayne was fun. So yeah, it was good.
Since then, how do fans react when they come and meet you?
They a lot of times they don't realize that I'm going to be as old as I am now. I think they kind of expect a 9-year-old, and it's been 50 some years. So I'm sorry, I'm old now. So.
What about your legendary father, Carl Hardman? Do you ever get people coming up to you going, "Yeah, your dad was a real jerk"?
Yeah, all the time, yeah. But he actually did not like his performance in the movie, and I thought he was great. He fooled me. He was nothing like that character at all.
Is he in the Horror Hall of Fame for that character?
I don't know. I don't know.
I believe I heard that he was in the Horror Hall of Fame as the slimy Harry Cooper.
I didn't really view his character as slimy. I think his reactions came out of fear. A lot of bad things happen when people are fearful. So yeah.
Well, I heard he was a great guy. I never got to meet him, but I heard he was a great guy. Anyways, it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
And hopefully you have a great con.
Thank you.
And this is Mark at Monroeville Mall. Hey, this is Mark. I'm here with Jarlath Conroy. You know him from Day of the Dead. How are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing fine. We've been busy.
How did you get the part in Day of the Dead?
Well, it's an interesting story. An actor by the name of Ken Ryan, who I didn't know him very well, but he's passed away now. But he said to Romero when he was auditioning for the role, he said, "If you don't cast me, you got to see Jarlath Conroy." And that's how I got the role.
So what is some of your most pleasant experience working on the film?
The main one was the fact that George was so understanding. He was so aware and perceptive. And so he allowed the cast to kind of put it together themselves, and people relating to each other, not actors doing their thing, but people relating, and he filmed that. And you see it today in some miniseries where the characters are actually talking to each other. And there are silences and stuff. So that's what I remember most. And I was early to the movie business at that time, so it was a great relief to be working with George and with Terry and Laurie and all of them. Gary, who's gone, and Richard Liberty and Ralph Marrero, they're all gone. And Joe Pilato. But I'm impressed and stupefied by the fact 40 years later, we have young people coming in here and they're very enthusiastic about the movie. It's like being rediscovered.
Now, you saw George's previous movies before you started working with him in this one.
No, I don't like horror movies. Well, I didn't back then. I watched Boris Karloff in The Mummy when I was a child. I didn't sleep that night and maybe for other nights. So since then, I kind of leave horror alone. But I'm getting more used to it now. I just did a bit in Screamboat, which is out, I think. Yes, it's out. And but that's a horror movie, horror comedy. Has a sense of humor about itself. There's gore, but there's also lightheartedness. So that was fun. I only had a day on it, but it was good.
So since then, about 15 years ago, you appeared in a little movie called True Grit, working with the Coen brothers. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, that was, where did we do that? I think somewhere in Georgia. It was again a very easy, simple. They don't say do it this way, do it that way. They take it in, and they might ask you to adjust a little bit, but otherwise they're very easy to work with. And Haley Seinfeld was terrific. I think she was 12. You know.
She was a powerhouse back then. I remember that performance.
Yes, she was, and she continues to be. I joke that she doesn't call me anymore.
So what do you got coming down the pipeline? What have you been up to?
There's a movie out now. They're called Any Day Now. It's about the theft of major artwork in Boston, from a gallery in Boston. They took Vermeers, they took Rembrandts, they took Monets, they took another, and they never found the work. They never arrested anybody. So they made a movie about it. I'm not in the movie, but they made a movie called Any Day Now. I don't know. And then they wanted to make a commercial to promote the movie. So what they did was they cast characters to play the artists whose work had been stolen. And the premise is the artists show up every night at the museum trying to solve the problem. And they cast me as Rembrandt.
It's an honor.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't live up to it. I can paint a door.
So how can we see that?
I think if you go to YouTube and put in Any Day Now, or put in, well, search it for that because I don't know.
Any Day Now trailer.
Any Day Now promo.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure speaking with you. We don't want to take up too much of your time, and it's been an honor.
Thank you.
And this is Mark, the Monroeville Mall at the Living Dead Weekend. Hey, this is Mark. Look who I have here. It's Terry Alexander from Day of the Dead. Tell me, how did you get casted in Day of the Dead?
Well, first, I'd like to say hi to all my Motown buddies in Detroit. It's where I was born, and I went to Wayne State University, did some productions down there that helped me to get the job in Day of the Dead. Really, I learned to do dialects there when I was at Wayne, and I took advantage of that and auditioned for Day of the Dead with a West Indian accent. So it's very cool, man, to be from Detroit. There's a lot of creativity came out of there, man, with jazz all along. But everybody left town, jazz and Motown stayed around. So it's all good, baby. It's all good.
So how did you get casted in the movie?
Well, as I told you, I auditioned with the monologue. The first thing I saw, and I asked George, hey, man, come on, this is beautiful. This is Shakespeare. You can't ask me to do that like that. I need an overnight. And he said, cool, take it. And I came back the next day, and I aced it, and that's how I got the job.
What was some of the most pleasant experience you had working with George Romero?
He was so precise. You know, as a writer-director, sometimes the writer takes over when he's directing something and is so scared to lose any of his precious words. And sometimes George says, no, you can cut that part, move that part over there, and let's go. It was great to work with George. Great, man, just great.
Did you see his movies prior to working with him?
I saw Night of the Living Dead, of course, many years ago before and then I looked at Dawn of the Dead just to get some exercises in my own mind about what he was doing with his film. So, yeah, I saw those two.
How do you feel about this film having its 40th anniversary?
It's so good, man. It's so relevant to what's happening today, and people are just beginning to get the symbols and all the stuff George put in that film, man. So it's so wonderful, man, after 40 years. I can't tell you.
Tell us, what have you been up to lately? What do you have coming out soon?
Well, I did a little part in a movie called Stream, which is a horror movie, and that is come to the theaters and has been out of the theaters. But nothing right now. Something's coming up. I got a couple of little irons in the fire, but I can't tell you what they are because it's bad luck, they say.
Terry, it was a pleasure speaking with you, buddy.
My pleasure.
And have a good con.
All right, Big G.
Hey, this is Mark at the Living Dead Weekend. I'm here with Jeff Whitehead. He's a writer of this cool new book by George Romero, The Amusement Park. And he's also the CEO of the George Romero Foundation. Tell us, how did you get started writing?
So I started writing when I was a kid, writing novels, and then got into film scripts in college, and now do a little bit of everything. Dabble in podcasts, graphic novels, some film scripts, and so it's been a really good run.
Are you a local here?
I am, yeah. I'm from Pittsburgh. I came to college here from the other side of the state originally, came to college and never left. And I should clarify, I'm actually the COO of the foundation. Our founder is our CEO. That's Susan Romero, George's wife.
And obviously, you know, being this is George Romero land over here, you had to gravitate toward him, and you probably loved all his films.
I sure did. My favorite is Day by a lot, and so it's nice to have that celebrated here so widely this weekend. And we're happy to have all the cast back. I remember watching that movie probably when I was a little too young to be watching that movie, but when we were kids, and I really enjoyed the social commentary between religion and science. So I have always gravitated to George, have always gravitated towards socially conscious horror.
How did you get involved in that book?
So one of the first projects we did of the foundation was to restore the amusement park. It was a less known, less seen project of George's that had been shelved for many years. And then Susan and I had talked with our artist friend Ryan, who's our resident artist, about taking some of the more public servicey things and actually making them into story. We couldn't obviously do that with the film, nor would we, because we didn't want to tamper with any of the actual film itself. So we looked at a different medium, and we said we can do this with graphic novel. Ryan had done a lot of these designs, including the one I'm wearing and several others around here, and the graphic novel was born.
Tell us a little bit about the foundation. Tell us how all that got started.
So after George passed in his untimely death in 2017, Susan Romero, his wife, decided to create a legacy for him by founding the foundation. I came in about a year later, in 2018, helped build it up to what it is today. So our primary projects, the things that when you buy things from the foundation, they all go towards our scholarship programs, mentorship programs, training programs, restoration projects, and some of the other creative projects that we do to help future filmmakers and artists and writers.
Do you have any original projects coming out soon?
So we did one last year with this fellow back here, a short film that's won some awards and is now going to get some distribution. We have a couple of other really cool things in the hopper, including the potential of doing a symphony, which would be very fun to celebrate George and the musical influences.
Thanks, Jeff. And we're here at the Living Dead weekend. I'm here with legendary filmmaker John Russo. He was one of the guys behind the making of the classic Night of the Living Dead, and he's done plenty of other cool horror movies. Tell me, sir, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So, how did you get started into filmmaking?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, and we had a group of friends, including George Romero. We all met when we were 18 years old. George came to Pittsburgh to go to Carnegie Mellon University, which used to be Carnegie Tech. He was a fine arts major, and his first day there, he met my friend Rudy Ritchie. We both graduated from the same high school, and Rudy said, "You have to meet this great guy, George Romero." He said, "We're supposed to be drawing the nude model, and he's drawing scenes from Ben-Hur." So I said, "Oh, great." So I was at WVU, and I came back for Christmas and jumped in Rudy's car, and we drove to George's place in the Oakland section of Pittsburgh, honked the horn. George came down to the street wearing a big sombrero, 2 bandoleros of ammunition, 2 pistolas, and a big drooping black mustache, and he got in the car. We were so cool, we didn't say a word, drove to a Dairy Queen, tried to get ice cream, but the girl slammed the window shut and wouldn't wait on us. So eventually, we all wanted to do creative things, and eventually we started making movies, which George had already been doing before he left New York.
Now, how did the script for Night of the Living Dead come about?
It's a little bit of a long story, but I came up with the idea as soon as we bought a 35 millimeter camera. I said, "Let's make a movie. We can probably do a better horror film than those junky things we've been seeing on Chiller Theater late at night." And we raised a little bit of money from friends and family and finance companies, and we got it started. And I said, George and I were the 2 writers in the company. We only had 6 people in our little company, the Latent Image. And I said, whatever we do ought to start in a cemetery, because cemeteries people find spooky. So I started writing a thing about, eventually, after some hits and misses on some things that we found we couldn't afford, with like space aliens coming to Earth and all that stuff, I started writing a thing where some kids are in a cemetery. One of them's wearing a ghoul mask. It's Halloween time. They stole a case of beer and they're hiding it. And they get caught, and the one kid gets punished and runs away from home, and he's running through the woods with his few belongings, and crack, he steps through a pane of glass in the ground. Underneath that pane of glass is a rotting corpse. So my idea was the aliens are already here. They like human flesh, and they like it a little bit rotten. Just like in the Middle Ages, when they shot a goose, they'd hang it up to rot for a few days. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of panes of glasses with corpses under them. So then George came in, and he had written about 20 pages or 30 pages in story form about a girl and her brother in a cemetery, and the girl's getting chased after the brother gets his head smashed. And I read it and I said, George, this is pretty good. It has all the right twists and turns and suspense, but who's chasing this girl? You never say. He said, I don't know. I said, well, seems to me they could be dead people. He said, that's good. I said, but what are they after? You don't say that either. And he said, I don't know. I said, why don't we use my flesh-eating idea? So that's how they became dead people, after human flesh. Without those ideas, you don't have Night of the Living Dead or anything that came after it.
So you and George were the perfect combination to come up with this script.
Yeah, we kind of were like that, even with commercial jobs and different documentaries and things that we wrote. And I was always like an idea man, and I still am, I'll come up with 10 ideas to everybody else's one. That's just the way I am.
Now, during the production of the movie, how long did it take to make it?
Night of the Living Dead, well, to make it, like any movie, it took months to shoot it. We shot in about 30 days in 3 bursts. And the first burst was 19 days at the farmhouse with a break to try to satisfy our commercial clients. And then back again. We had to go to Washington, D.C., which was also my idea. Let's just go to Washington, D.C. and shoot.
Oh, that was a great insert into the movie.
Well, we drove there in one day because we didn't have any money. We drove in one day, shot it without any permission at all, which you'd get arrested or shot if you tried it today. And then when we drove back all in one day, because Washington, D.C. is about 250 miles from Pittsburgh. So I said in a meeting, let's just go there. So I got into my Army uniform, and I was the general's driver. Carl Hardman had a car that looked like it could be a general's car, and decked it out with flags and so on. And Al McDonald played the general. He had to change clothes on the sidewalk. By that time, we had all kinds of people gathered around the camera, and we held up blankets, and he changed into the uniform.
Yeah, that was a really cool scene. Now, tell me, what have you been doing since Night of the Living Dead? I know you're a writer, and I know you've made a lot of independent films. You've been doing a lot. Just give us like the top stuff.
What have I been doing? I've got about 40 published novels, and I've made about 15 feature films and tons of documentaries and commercials and every other kind of thing. Published magazines, published books, and I'm still going. I'm directing a movie right now. Well, I'm not actively directing yet because we're in pre-production with a film called Red Tide Massacre, which is going to be shot in L.A. and also in Florida. So the reason I'm here is because the schedule got moved. I wasn't supposed to be here, but the schedule got bumped a little bit, and I got here, came here at I got in touch with Tommy, who runs this convention, and she said, yeah, I'll always give you a table. So here I am.
You're one of the last guys from that Latent Image group that's still with us. I mean, that's got to be heartbreaking to be, lose all your friends from that era. I know Russ is still with us.
Well, Russ and I, we're still friends. I talked to him before I left, but I wouldn't say it's heartbreaking. I mean, at George's funeral in Toronto, I shed tears and I spoke at his funeral. But thing is, nobody lives forever. Hemingway had a friend that whenever they heard about a friend of theirs that died, and Hemingway's friend said, "There's people dying this year that never died before." So I say that sometimes, and not necessarily when a friend dies, but I will quip. I'm the one that makes people laugh when we're on stage. So, in fact, I have a book here with my jokes in it called John Russo's Dirty Jokes.
Got to check that out. Well, anyways, Mr. Russo, we don't want to take up too much of your time, but it was a pleasure speaking with you as always.
All right, thanks. Good luck.
And this is Mark with Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi. Hey, this is Mark here with Eugene Clark. You may know him as Big Daddy from Land of the Dead. So we saw that Dan Phillips applied this cool looking makeup on you. Yeah. How many times did you have this makeup applied to you on the set of Land of the Dead?
I can't remember. I fell asleep. I don't know. Countless times. I just fell asleep.
So how did you end up landing the job on the movie?
Oh, man, I just walked in there and said, give me the job, dang it. Just give me the job. No. George, we had a improv type audition process that George put us through.
So what was it like working with the legend, George Romero?
It was great. He was a really great guy. I mean, he's a creative genius. Because of him, look what we got now. Walking Dead, I Zombie, this movie, this zombie, every single zombie because of him.
George passed away. What was going through your mind when you heard of the news?
I saw him maybe 4 weeks prior to that at Ottawa Comic Con, and we were going to get together at some point. I wanted to take him and his wife to dinner, and that never happened, so that really hurt my heart.
What do you like the most about coming to these cons?
I love the people. This is all about the people. Because without them, there is no Walking Dead. There is nothing, because if they don't show up, if they don't watch and love the characters, we don't have this. I love meeting the people. I love seeing the joy in their faces. I try my best to always make sure their experience to me is a great one.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Eugene. Hey, this is Mark. I'm here with Superfan Paul O'Boyle. He is dressed as, obviously, you can tell he's Dr. Frankenstein from Day of the Dead. Tell us why this particular character that you wanted to portray.
Well, the movie's important to me because when it came out, I had joined the military and I was having some misgivings, and the characters in the film hit me, especially the crazy military guys, because I sort of knew every one of them. I'm like, I know that guy. I've seen a guy like that. I worked with an idiot like that. So I love the movie for that reason. And then years later, of course, my wife said, you look like Richard Liberty. Why don't you do it? And I thought, okay, I'll try. And I kind of started going to thrift stores, and I found the jacket, and I took pictures of the film, and I put the blood where it was supposed to be, and got the razor in the book, the Salem's Lot book. And I did a convention, a reunion 4-day years ago in Cleveland. And when I went, Tom Savini and everyone there was like, my God, great costume, what the heck, and I just started to do it. And so I've done it at a few conventions, and I've come here before, but this is only my second time at Monroeville. So,
did you get any photo ops with any Bub cosplayers?
I have, all the time. And in fact, I just saw a Bub here, which was great. Almost everyone I go to, there's a Bub somewhere. I got to find him, and I got to get him by the chain and get a photo. So it's so cool. I love it. I love doing it. It's fun, and I love the movie, and all of George's movies are great. But this happens to be my favorite of all of his movies, just for that reason. I think it hit me at a time in my life where it resonated with me. The message of it, Let's have fun, let's go to an island and spend the rest of the time soaking up some sunshine.
And you get to come here and celebrate with people from your particular land, you might say.
Exactly, yeah. And I get to meet, I've met all the cast members, and they think it's hilarious, and they come up and go, you're dead, how could you be here, and all this stuff. So it's really fun, and I enjoy coming out and driving. I live in North Carolina, so it's quite a drive. Okay, as far as the mall goes, I'm not really sure how I feel about that, and I know a lot of people are really anxious about it, but the mall does need to be revamped. It's really old. I mean, I don't live here, but I know how malls are, and I'm sure they're having trouble. So revamping it's probably a good idea. The parking lot's really bad. They need some work. But I think they should keep part of it the way it is and maybe have a memorial kind of setup in it, which would be great. People could still come here. The mall would be new. It wouldn't be exactly the same, but at least they could keep part of maybe what was here for the fans. 40th thing, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, I don't really need to see it on the big screen again, but it would be nice for people to get to see it that haven't seen it. There's a lot of people that haven't seen the movie or maybe saw it once and kind of forgot about it. I think it's kind of an unsung hero of George's films, and I know some people, some friends of mine, that I've turned them on to it. They maybe didn't like it the first time in the theater, but now that they've watched it a couple of times, they get the message of it, and then they say, oh, wait a minute, there's something about this film that's really, really cool. It's my favorite of all of George's films, so something about it's just really cool. So
You are truly a super fan.
well, thanks for the interview. It's good to see you guys. I hope they do another one. We'll see. Let's hope so.
This is
You
Mark
never know.
at Monroeville Mall. Hey, this is Mark at the Living Dead Weekend. I'm here with Sebastian Sinister and Cedric. They're local horror hosts here in the Pittsburgh area. Tell me, how did you guys get started doing television hosting?
Well, growing up, we had Schiller Theater. So Bill Cardille was our something that we did every Saturday night. We watched Schiller Theater, being a monster kid from the 60s and 70s. And as time persisted, after I worked at a haunted attraction for 11 years and decided I was done doing that, and decided right around COVID that I'm going to write this show. And from that point on, we've been rolling ever since.
Cedric, what is your part on the show?
I'm the butler, and this time the butler didn't do it. I'm the butler, and I also am a singing butler. I do a lot of novelty songs for the show, like Vampires Only Want You for Your Blood, Bud, things of that nature. And with Joe, I write the skits and generally cause mayhem on the set.
What are some of your favorite movies that you've got to show on your show?
Well, we showed the first episode. We showed Boris Karloff and the Ghoul. We show all public domain movies. Second one, we did Plan 9 from Outer Space. If you get a chance to watch that one on it, you're going to laugh because we actually had a UFO operator that was flying it in front of Cedric as he was doing the song. Episode 3, we did all zombie episode. So that was pretty fun to watch because we introduced Zombie Bob Moss. And we had Greta, our zombie maid. She's always underfoot, so Fred has to take care of the zombie maid all the time. So Cedric's always working around the castle, trying to make sure things are going well. And Drusilla plays my wife on the show.
Cedric, what are some of the challenges on running a show like this?
Money. Actually, I've always said the best special effects cost less than $5 because they involve a lot of hard work and ingenuity and imagination. Anybody can CGI if they've got $100,000 to work with. We don't have that option. Instead of an earthquake, you shake the camera.
So where do you see your show coming up in the future?
Well, we're working on getting a grant money. With the grant money, if this works out, then we'll be able to produce a lot more episodes. We also do a co-op with the Tom Savini Makeup School down in Manessa, PA. Jerry Gergley is our makeup artist. His students also work on our set with us, so they get experience to work on an actual show before they even graduate. We're working on doing a number of other things. We also do live events where we actually perform live in front of a live audience. Our next show is August 30th. So if you're in the Pittsburgh area, come on down to the Beck Ringling Tavern and Distillery in Scenery Hill. We're going to be doing the Monster Dating Game as one of our episodes. And we're also going to have our house band, X-Ray Dead, are going to be performing that night also. And we're here today getting interviews from the cast members from Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and so forth. And we want, we're always looking to put more people on the show. People seem to really enjoy our episodes with a lot of iconic people. So we always try to organize our show. We pick the movie, then we do the skits, the music, everything is rounded out that relates to that particular movie.
So for those people who can't come and see you live, where can people find you?
They can find us at terrornighttheater with an RE.com on the internet. All one word, lowercase, terrornighttheater.com.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And we'll see you soon. We had a great time here at the Living Dead weekend at the Monroeville Mall, meeting all the cast and crew of the George Romero zombie movies. And when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
That's it for this episode of the Comics Beer and Sci-Fi Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time.